All right, Ron Klos is here, my colleague over at BetSperts Golf, the man largely responsible for all of the phenomenal data that you see on a week-to-week basis over at the Rabbit Hole. Thanks for doing this with me, man. I know we've been trying to do this for a couple weeks, and you've just had the slew of fatherhood hit you at always at the wrong time.
Yeah, it'd be a busy day today. Short week, as we were talking about. Wish we had a little stronger field, but yeah, happy to talk some farmers and also maybe a little rabbit hole.
The short week is just a nightmare. Like I have loved it in years past until you're, running a little media operation. It sounds so great to me in theory, and then trying to fit all of the content that we do, which is like now 7 shows and 5 articles into 48 hours barely, when it was probably even a little ambitious to fit it into 72 hours. It's been a grind today. It's been a grind today. So we will keep it semi brief on the farmers in terms of like I don't think I need too much extraneous content in terms of the things that I've already probably talked about that you've heard in some of my podcasts over the last 24 hours. I'm more curious to get your thoughts on the golf course. You are one of my favorite people to talk golf with. We've been talking data together behind the scenes for now a number of years, and been working together in close proximity for the last year and a half, probably 2 years or so now in BetSperts. But before we get into Torrey Pines, how's the first couple of weeks of the season treated you? How has been? We've made so many additions over at BetSperts. I know it's been super busy for you over there, but how's January been? How's the first month of golf been treating you?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago at the Sony, I had Nick Taylor, 150 to 1. I got that right when it came out, and
I saw that. Congratulations,
yes,
man.
thank you. So, yeah, rabbit hole definitely came into play, and then last week, Ryan Noonan, hit Straka,
I
and
do.
that's and I'll just speak, kind of combine that together with kind of the power of the rabbit hole, because he had specifically looked at the best putters on Poetriv, and Straka was like at the top of the list. And getting even a little more granular, Straka was also fifth best in the entire field when we were looking at, or Ryan was looking at, approach when filtering by short and very short courses. And so, he kind of, he saw that, jumped on it. And so, I just think just early on, last year I was so busy kind of building the rabbit hole and putting everything together and trying to make sure everything was the way I needed it to be. And this year I'm like able to sit back a little more and actually, use it on a week to week basis, and maybe getting into some DFS, and, obviously, betting a little bit more, and actually seeing it, working this early in the year is really exciting.
Has it been rewarding for you seeing like all of those signups roll in? I know there was a huge bump once we started working together last year, and even I've been pretty overwhelmed with the support that it's received. And I think we've kind of gotten to a point now where it's widely accepted in the golf betting community that if you're not using this for your data, you're just at a pretty inherent disadvantage. And I always knew personally that we could get there from the second that I started working from you guys, but I have to imagine it must feel pretty rewarding to actually see the numbers rolling. It has been for me on the back end.
Yeah, so we started this whole, I started putting this, obviously I had this vision for what it should look like, and we're talking 3-4 years ago. And then we finally getting able to get it down somewhat a couple years ago, and then last year kind of we went at it 100%. It was ready to kind of unveil it right at the start of last year, and I just kind of was waiting for like the glitches to come. And we've had a few things we've had to overcome, but I got to give a lot of credit to
There's
our
always
tech team.
something.
Yeah, our guys, our guys who have built it, like, you have two parts to this. You have, my part where, obviously I'm laying the groundwork, the blueprint for, all the stats, all the filters, and all the work that goes into that. But then you got, our team who's behind the scenes, who has to actually build it. And so, the fact that it's been so smooth, even more than I thought, I got to give a lot of credit to them as well. But yeah, it's been good to see the progress and the growth. And, I know I think it's less by the day, but I know there's still a few holdouts who are, grasping onto, another site or two. But I think eventually, it's one of those things where you just see everybody using it, and everybody's using it for a reason. So it's been good to see.
Not super worried about that. They'll come around in time. So, okay. So what's, I talked about this a little bit with Ryan, but Ryan filled in as a sub for you on that podcast. So I really want to get your opinion before we start talking a little bit more specifically about Torrey. What are you most proud of this year in terms of the stuff that you guys have unveiled for some of the listeners that maybe they're on the fence, or maybe they've used it, but they may not be super familiar with all of the new stuff that we have to offer this year?
Yeah, so I completed a bunch of new features during the fall that I'm sure kind of went under the radar because, as you know, once NFL starts, it just kind of sinks. Even though we did have a few exciting events there in the fall for the PJ Tour, but probably what I'm most proud of, and there's so many, but probably, and I think pretty sure a lot of people have not even explored this page yet, but the finish position data page.
Yeah.
Where you can actually go in and I mean, if you're betting, top 20s, top 40s, if you just I know so many people who do make the cut parlays or miss cut parlays, and to be able to not just to see the finish rates, but also to add the filters. If you wanted to, this week, if you wanted to see who has the best top 20 rate on long and difficult courses, you can go all the way back to 2015 and you can get that exact rate for not just top 20s, but everything from win percentage to made cut percentage. And so I think that's kind of something, I probably need to highlight a little more. But, I just think that's one example. And then, I added more graphs to player pages. So those got even bigger. Completed version number 1 of the course pages. And so really proud of those.
Huge fan of the course pages. There's one more thing you need to add though, and it's the thing that I ask you for every week. It's that little chart that you do. That chart is so valuable to me. I love looking at that every week.
Yeah, I mean, I got so many ideas for that. Another thing I was thinking of today even is what are, looking back, even winners or top 5 performers on courses, what was their incoming form?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Coming in. So there's just I literally have my notebook of 2 or 3 pages of just things for course pages that I would like to add. So and we talk about this a lot, but I take great pride in, we're not going to rest on our laurels. We're just going to keep building and adding and that's why I even encourage people, hey, you got ideas, hey, send me a message, any of us, we will.
And they'll tell you. I've learned that at my own company.
Yep. So yeah, and then another thing that I kind of just put out there today, it's actually been on the site for a month or two, but we have a tournament cheat sheet, which basically gives, just if you just want a quick snapshot of just, recent strokes gain data, recent form. It also has course history going back 8 years. And we have all that in one simple view. So, and then another one that I really love is the overall proximity data. So we're the only site, not only can you get proximity from the fairway and from the rough, but also combine it together. So you can look at overall proximity, and nobody has it from 200 to 250, and then from 250 plus. Other places they'll have the 200 plus, which is fine. But if you wanted to get really specific, and
Torrey Pines, I would say Torrey Pines is somewhat relevant in that conversation as well.
Yep. So no, and yeah, just really quick, a couple things that are coming. I know some people they're kind of getting used to new stuff coming out all the time, so they're like, what's next? So hopefully in the next, I would probably say next 2 months to be safe. But I'm going through and I'm adding weather data. We already have wind, but I'm literally going round by round and adding precipitation. So whether the course was wet or dry. And another one
I'm sure that's not going to take a long time at all.
No, it takes forever. Temperature. So, you have some of these early West Coast weeks, as living out there, where, you got some chillier mornings. But yeah, adding temperature and trying to kind of incorporate that with AM and PM rounds. So if the guys ting off in the AM and it's cool, PM it gets warmer. So actually having kind of a temperature filter per round. And then this one I love. I know people have kind of mentioned this kind of on and off over the years, but how do players perform in rounds that have preferred lies? So I think that's one where if you can look and see, okay, this guy, like, he's really playing well, really playing really, on approach, which I would assume that would be the biggest impact if you have preferred lies, you have that clean line of the fairway every time. But just to see that data, like, I think it would be really cool to see, and I'm looking forward. And also, I'll just say this too. DP World Tour, we're seeing a lot more of these guys go over there and play those events, even the live guys now, getting into those. And so that is also something that's on our radar as far as adding that data.
I was going to say, I think that's the final piece, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that we are already so much ahead of other sites because a lot of other sites don't even have major data. So, like, for example, we have all the data for the Masters, which I can't even begin to explain to you why the Masters having that data specifically from Augusta is a lot more valuable than just seeing a strokes gain total number next to how a player performed at the Masters. Like, there is so much useful context in there, knowing how they specifically got it done at Augusta. But I'm glad to hear you talking about DP World Tour, because I was thinking about that myself this week. Like, we have a bunch of pretty sharp, like, they take DP World Tour betting pretty seriously in our Discord. And I'll give you an example of it this week. Like, Nicholas Norgard, some of our DP World Tour bettors are like, this guy's amazing. And I'm like, I buy it. I also don't watch DP World Tour, and I also don't have a proper data set yet to adequately give you my opinion on how good specifically Nicholas Norgard is. But people who watch the DP World Tour swear by him. So, I mean, I think if you could add that final piece, then it's just like, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. And there's a lot of interest in that, especially, with all the guys starting to cross over. And so with that though, like I don't just want to add the data. Like, I want to do the course research and add all the course filters, which may be a little ambitious at this moment in time to kind of create a DP World Tour rabbit hole. I think that would be off the charts crazy. It might take longer than I even think, but just to get get the data, and then, man, if we could get all those filters with all those courses, like, that would be amazing.
I would say get the data first, to be honest with you. Like, I would say prioritize getting the data first, and then if you wanted to add course specific filters to the DP World Tour actual golf courses, like, I think that I think you would see people immediately start building more models for the DP World Tour. Like, every single person that I know that bets DP World Tour, like, they're basically just going off of very rudimentary processes for picking golfers. Like, they're looking at how a player performed last week. They're looking at, like, their data golf page. They're looking at, like, their general course fit. There isn't, like, really a market for breaking down golf courses on the PGA Tour. Like, there isn't anything like what I do for the PGA Tour for the DP World Tour. And the reason for that is not necessarily because there aren't people that aren't smart about the DP World Tour and watch it every week. There's just not a database of golf courses that we have for the PGA Tour. Like, I know that I could log on to the rabbit hole and I could get absolutely everything that I need to know about Torrey Pines, plus the years of experience of going to Torrey Pines and watching it and all that history. So, yeah, I mean, I genuinely, I'm totally with you. I think the sky is the limit, but don't drive yourself too crazy, man. I've noticed that as well. And I think I'm with you that one of the things that I appreciate about you personally and the rabbit hole in general is because I totally feel the same way about you in terms of crowdsourcing feedback. Like, I'm there almost to a fault. I believe in this at ISN in terms of, like, listening to what my subscribers want, hearing my opinion, hearing their opinions. You're going to get some things that you don't need to use in there from time to time, but especially when you're a new company, like, and this is my frustration with some of the data sites in the past, because I would email them and I would tell them, like, hey, this is not right. And they would just kind of big time me a little bit, like, or yeah, like we'll work on it. And that was one thing I'm like, okay, I'm just never going to do that. Like if somebody reaches out to me and it's like, hey, we should add this, or hey, have you thought about doing this? Like, A, I'm going to respond, and B, I'm actually going to like do it if it's a good idea, which is like many of the things have already happened at ISN where I'm like, gosh, it's a really good idea. I'm going to actually execute this and do this tomorrow. And I think that's what I love about the rabbit hole. It's like I can ask you about anything and you do it the next day. I'm not encouraging people to start living in Ron's DMs anytime you want some random filter. But I think that matters, man. Like I really do. And I don't mean to ramble, but like I think it's worth celebrating. And I wanted to highlight you for that because not a lot of people prioritize that.
Yeah, I mean, let me say this. I completely agree. Simply because I don't know if the rabbit hole would even kind of be happening now if it wasn't for that, because I was in the same spot, like so frustrated with wrong data. Greens are completely wrong. Not going to name any certain sites, but when you have the same website for 5+ years and you literally don't add anything, like, come on, that's just, and there'll be consequences for that as they're probably experiencing right now. But
Yeah.
that's something that I will never let happen is, we're always going to keep adding. So it's fun for me. Like, I know, yeah, I don't want to work myself too hard, but it's like fun stuff. Just, something about the golf data, gets me going.
You gotta love the
It's
work
motivating.
too. That's the thing about it too. Like I genuinely love breaking down golf courses. It doesn't feel like work to me. Like I absolutely thoroughly enjoy it. And you kind of have to have that a little bit if you're gonna be as crazy about it as you and I are. Okay, let's do Torrey Pines. So let's transition us into a little Torrey Pines discussion. What are you looking at this week? What are some of the things that maybe you've used with the rabbit hole or just in general, your far reaching thoughts on the golf course?
This is, I guess whenever I think of this course, it always kind of the first thing in mind is kind of, prototypical US Open track. We know with the long rough and the narrow fairways. And I know I've listened to you a bunch, kind of talk about this. And yeah, the lack of creativity with the holes, you kind of have these cookie cutter holes. And yeah, like it's just, this is one of those courses where, it's kind of is up there with course history matters. But it's also, this is maybe the ultimate course fit track where, you've got your group of guys who, you can kind of underline, you can kind of go through the field and, okay, these 30 guys have the best chance. And it's just based on, the same things that we've been talking about here, the last day or so, driving distance, and, long iron play. And so for me, just to take it to the rabbit hole here, kind of, this is where, having the rabbit hole is such, in my opinion, and in yours as well, it's a necessity because the amount of things you can get unique with. So let me give you an example here. So, and again, Ryan Noonan, he kind of brought this up today, and, we kind of talk about this all the time, but just looking at off the tee, so many people are just going to look at driving distance. Okay. Even total driving, which again, we have total driving on the rabbit hole. Again, fully customizable. The only place you can look at different time periods and everything. But instead of looking at driving distance, look at carry distance because California, the air's thicker. Now, typically this course is very soft because of all the wetness, and I've heard it's
not
very
soft
dry
this year.
Very dry. Yep. So
can confirm not soft this year.
But still, instead of taking just driving distance combining with driving accuracy, rabbit hole, you can look at carry distance and then combine that with distance from edge of the fairway, which is kind of a hybrid total driving model. And so, and that's the thing is when you're modeling, like we have our expert models that we put on there, but I don't know if people realize you can build like these little mini models. And so like earlier today, I built like a little mini hybrid total driving model where I just looked at carry distance and then distance from edge of the fairway, which is kind of the accuracy part. And yeah, just to look like, for example, the top five, we have.
I was going to ask, yeah. So who's popping up there for you?
Number 1, Oberg. Number 2, Luke Clanton. Keegan Bradley was number 3. Kurt Kitayama and Thomas Dietrich were 4 and 5, and those two guys keep coming up in everything. And then I look. Here's another one. So you want to look at birdie or better percentage on long and difficult courses, and I was not really shocked, but Ludwig kind of was lapping the field here at 23%. And then you got Justin Rose sitting at 19%, and he's number 2. And so, I'm a little frustrated that, so many guys withdrew, because I would have loved to bet, Oberg at a better number than what he opened at. And because I'm now wishing I could kind of go back, because I kind of took a lot more picks in the middle of the board this week. But yeah, he's just a guy that is just, and even I looked at birdie or better percentage from the rough, which again, the only place you can customize that is in the rabbit hole. And then there he is again, number 1 at 20.6%. So just a lot of the same guys keep kind of popping up when you look at the kind of the unique filters in the rabbit hole.
Ludwig was popping up everywhere for me as well. And I don't think that's going to be a unique experience for anyone running a model this week. So you weren't inclined to take the plunge at 12-1. I think he's now down to 10 in a lot of spots as well. It certainly is. It's certainly steep, right? It's I think just at a macro level, thinking about the amount that Hideki Matsuyama wins, who also in his own right has been, quite solid at Torrey. Ludwig obviously does have a 9th in his lone appearance at Torrey. It was his first time playing the golf course last year. He looked quite good. He actually putted well too, which was a big thing for me to see how he performed for the first time on Pillow Greens. And I'm just as guilty as this as anyone else, but it does feel like the respect that Ludwig is receiving in the market is just as much a product of his course fit as it is a product of people just wanting to be there for that first time.
Yeah. And so, so kind of, I guess this is, when I usually find numbers I don't like, using the rabbit hole, especially digging in a lot more this year, these are some of the guys I jumped on. And so another kind of a unique search I did was, as around the green is going to be pretty big this week. So scrambling from the rough. And so again, we have that option where you can just look at from the rough as opposed to the short grass. And again, another thing that, I would encourage people to do, Torrey Pines has some of the toughest greens on tour. Now, maybe not as much undulation as you would think.
Well, it's the POA, right? It's because what happens
POA,
it's what happens in the afternoon is those greens get a lot of foot traffic. And so POA is a surface that is a little bit splotchier. And when you get a lot of foot traffic trampling down on the POA all day, the grass is a little thicker, right? So it's going to be easier for the ball to bounce. It's not like you watch it last week on the POA Trivialis, and it's like watching them roll a ball on carpet, right? And POA is just a thicker blade of grass that's a little bit more variable and is growing in a little bit more different directions. And so when somebody stomps on the POA, the grass is just super in the weeds, but I'm just explaining that the agronomic reasons behind why that is. But you'll see in the afternoons, if you're watching the coverage, like this is the number 1 power rated event for times you're going to see a golfer miss a 5-footer and look at their putter and be like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah. And so that's I'm glad you said that, because that kind of talks to the 2 stats that I looked at, that we have in the around the green section. And so scrambling from the rough with difficult greens. And so Zalatoris, and again, we know that he's had his issues with scrambling, but I think we'd agree he's typically been much better from the rough. And so he's number 1 in scrambling, 65%. Chris Gotterup, 64%. And then Hideki was 3rd at 62%. So, yeah. And another one we have that, I think a lot of people, I don't even know if many people use this metric, but proximity from around the green. And so when you're off the green and you're chipping to the green, how close are you getting your chip shot to the hole? Which kind of goes to what you said, because if, obviously this is one of the toughest putting courses from, close range. And so, the closer you can hit your approach chip to the hole, you're going to make it that much easier for yourself when you're putting. And so around the green proximity, again, if you're out there and, you look at the rabbit hole, that's another metric that would encourage people to start looking at a little closer.
I was looking at the around the green proximity. Where are you getting that from to find the chip distance? because I was diving into that a little bit myself, and I wasn't like super familiar with the stat.
Yeah, so it's not the distance you are from the hole. It's the distance. So after you chip it, it's the distance
So it's
your
almost like
ball is from the hole.
right. It's almost like approach putt performance, but for
Yep.
chipping.
For chipping.
Yeah.
Yep. Same thing. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I actually think that at Torrey Pines, and I was looking at that this week, so it's good to hear you say the same thing. But I actually think that at Torrey Pines is probably more valuable than maybe any other golf course on the PGA Tour. I'll tell you the reason why for that. The make percentage from Torrey Pines from 4 to 8 feet is lower than any other golf course on the PGA Tour. So the value of a tap in at Torrey Pines is actually like more EV than any other golf course on the PGA Tour. Like it's just a math equation, right? So the most times that you can give yourself a literal tap in at Torrey Pines over the course of 72 holes, if the make percentage at Torrey Pines is demonstrably lower from 4 to 8 feet, then again, it's just a math equation. At Torrey Pines, you're just going to miss more 4 to 8 footers over the course of 72 holes. And so work that backwards. And the value of getting it to tap in range is just going to be that much more important for you.
Yep, completely agree. And here's another one that I just thought of, and I just put a tweet out with this, but obviously with the thick rough, with the longer courses, club head speed, ball speed, I think this is one of those weeks where I think it pays to kind of look at those numbers a little bit, and again, kind of seeing the same. No really surprises here, but club head speed. I mean, we have this is the thing I love about the rabbit hole is you can go back and look. You go to the PGA Tour site and you can look at club head speed, but it's just for that year. And so rabbit hole, you can go back and you can look 2 years. You can go back and look just last 50 rounds. And so I went back a little bit longer term, but club head speed. When guys are on these types of courses, long courses with thick rough, Gary Woodland, Luke List, Taylor Montgomery, Dietrich, Kitayama, Tony Finau, number 1 in ball speed. So kind of the bigger hitters that you would kind of expect to see. But again, a lot of times that's what I'll use the rabbit hole for, just to kind of a confirmation thing where I have my biases, my opinions, and then the rabbit hole, if I see that confirming it, that's usually a good thing if I'm, playing someone for DraftKings or trying to bet on someone.
So what are some of the names that have your attention this week if you're not going big Ludwig at the top?
Yeah, I like I said, kind of that 20 to 40 range. I've got an outright on Zalatoris. I really like what I've seen from him the first couple of weeks this year. Looks like he's kind of back to where he was, and as we all know, when he gets to difficult courses, he kind of shines. And so Jason Day is another one who, when I really dug into the numbers, I think tee to green form coming in is really important for Torrey. And I know we've only had a few
he hit the ball.
Year.
He hit the ball phenomenally well at Amex. It was fairly alarming because typically you think when this version of Jason Day plays well, it's generally a lot of help is attributed to the putter, and he actually lost strokes putting, at least in his 2 rounds at the American Express. Like he was absolutely flushing it last week in Palm Springs.
Yeah. And so he really impressed me. We all know his around the green play, his putting. And so, and then I was a little hesitant with this one, but this was, I actually had Akshay at 55. And then when he went out, I took a longer look at Max Homa, and, I kind of gritted my teeth doing it because I don't really know if he's back yet. But I think there's been a few encouraging signs as far as the numbers go. So I looked at him, and Thomas Dietrich, I think there's some great value on him.
I agree. I don't know if I trust him to win a golf tournament, but I'm 100% going to be there in DFS. He was popping in my numbers as well. Like I think this is. I'm glad we're looking at the same things because like Kitayama, Dietrich, Pendrith all made a lot of sense to me from a number standpoint this week. Actually, Aaron Rye too, for what it's worth.
Yep, him too. And then I know you'd agree with me on this one. This guy has, I know he's been really bad lately, but he's coming home, and he actually has he actually has 3 top 25s here, and he was 225 to 1, and you know who I'm talking about.
You talking about the Bram wagon? You
Yeah,
know, DK was shaking in their boots this morning. He opened at 151. DK got down to 110.
wow.
And I could tell you I was not betting it, probably with the Discord's help, but yeah, I mean, I frankly, I will be honest with you. I do not want this to come off as me not being confident in Joseph Bramlett. I am, but I mean, he's not a PGA Tour player right now. Like he didn't qualify. He didn't qualify for Q School. He has phenomenal history at Torrey Pines, and my numbers love him because his long-term course fit here in terms of what Joseph Bramlett is good at, as evidenced by his 3 top 25s and 4 appearances at Torrey Pines, is like when Joseph Bramlett is playing well, it's because of the distinctive skill set that is going to help you at Torrey Pines. Like he hits the ball a mile. He carries the ball a mile. He hits the ball really high. He hits the ball really high with his long irons. He has that specific Torrey Pines skill set that we've seen been able to work for Luke List in the past here, where if you can just get a situation where you can tread water on the greens, and he's actually, like, compared to other surfaces, has been sneaky okay on POA and has been sneaky okay putting on Torrey Pines. I still bet him at 200 to 1. I'm glad to hear you there as well. I thought he was going to be 400 to 1 and 6.3K. I guess maybe some of the books are looking at the rabbit hole too, because I was like, gosh, we can't get anything a little bit better on a guy, because he's not one of those he's not like a young gun either. You know,
No.
sometimes you'll see like these young guns that are coming up from the Corn Ferry Tour and don't have a lot of data. They'll catch a bunch of steam because of what they can be and their potential. Bramwagon's been out here. Bramwagon's a wily veteran.
And I specifically walked with his group when he came to Detroit for the Rocket Mortgage last year. And, you know, like with Torrey, you know, the par 4s and 3s are so challenging. Like you have to score on some of those par 5s. And so I think that's another little edge that he has, is that he kind of eats the par 5s up and he kind of tends to struggle on the other holes. And so, you know, if he can maybe create some separation on those types of holes, you know, I thought, you know, 225, I've got to jump at that. So, and let me give you one more quick rabbit hole. And this kind of solidified for me some of the guys that I bet on. Is, you know, another filter we have is basically you can select whatever season, you know, so we're on the West Coast swing right now. So, okay, let me go check. Let me see who's popping in the West Coast swing. And the top 5 are Homa, Day, Zalatoris, Finau, and Hideki. And so this is going back 5 years. So again, you can go back all the way to 2015 if you want. I went back 5 years, you know, to get enough sample. And, you know, we all know those are, you know, max obviously in California, this is the thing, but yeah, to see Day and Zalatoris, you know, so that kind of solidified for me, you know, to kind of be a little heavier on those guys this week.
Any long shots or under the radar guys that the rabbit hole led you to before we get out of here? We're going to do a shorty tonight because I have 8 million more things to do for the website before the end of the evening in this short week. But give me 1 or 2 more guys you have before we get out of here, or maybe even a specific rabbit hole that, you know, you think would be interesting to lead some people down this week as it pertains to Torrey.
Yeah, so so one guy I'll give you first. So Gary Woodland.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people.
I like him a lot too. Yeah,
I know he's on a lot of ban lists just because, you know, with the putter he's, you know, had his struggles, as we all seen. But, you know, look, he says this is the healthiest he's felt in a long time. The numbers kind of do show that. I think he was 13th at Sony, which is a course that doesn't really, I don't think, fits him as well as Torrey does. So
agreed.
I really do like him as kind of an under the radar play. And yeah, if you want to, again, I'll rabbit hole related one last thing here. You know, I think, you know, with the rough coming into play this week with the narrow fairways, like everybody's going to be hitting from the rough at some point. But yeah, the ability to look at proximity from, you know, say 200 plus, and, you know, 26% of shots this week are coming from that range. And so when you can actually go and even if you just don't want to look at a specific range, like we have just rough proximity, just to kind of see who those guys are. I know Tony Finau kind of always pops from the rough for me. Carson Young was a surprise one too. Who's
my guy. It's a big guy for us at ISN. We love Carson. He's been on the podcast before. I talk golf courses with him quite a bit. And he's the real deal. He is seriously the real deal, and has the skill set for Torrey as well.
And that's what surprised me because he's kind of a smaller guy, and from 200 plus from the rough, he was like the second best in this field.
Yeah,
So
he
yeah,
murders it, dude. He murders the
yep.
ball for his frame. He hits the ball unbelievably far. Like he's no bigger than JT. I think he's probably maybe even smaller than JT. He's probably skinnier now than JT. And he's up there in terms of drive. I mean, he's not one of like the 10 longest players in the field, but he's above average in driving distance, above average in carry distance. Really good long arm player too. Like super good. He hasn't, I don't think he's played like a tremendous amount of golf on the West Coast. You know, he's kind of like a Southeastern guy, Clemson guy. I don't know what I know he played because he had his full, he's now had 2 years on tour. So he played Torrey. He played some of the West Coast courses last year and probably now has some experience on POA. But I think if he can, once he gets comfortable here, this is going to be a golf course that he's going to play well at for years to come.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things that I just love about the rabbit hole is you can find those little gems. Like you knew about Carson Young being so good I did not have any idea until I actually saw it for myself. And I mean, pretty good sample size too. Talking about like over 40 rounds. So So those are the things that like I keep finding new stuff like every week is like a new adventure. Like, and I don't mean that to try to promote the rabbit hole, but like each course, obviously a lot of courses are similar, but like with this week with Torrey, like there's so many, rabbit holes you could actually go down if you really wanted to, and you had the time. And so that's what makes it so fascinating to me.
The limit does not exist. Well, hey, we'll get you back on here later in the season I've gotten some questions about this. I know that you already do a phenomenal job with a bunch of tutorials, but maybe later in the year, we'll do like a longer podcast when there's not a tournament where there's more of a visual component and we answer some questions and maybe we dive into some of the ins and outs of the data, answer some listener questions about data, about how we model and stuff like that down the road, because I know that just the excitement in modeling this year in my community is grown a lot. Like a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm gonna start doing this. And that is a huge credit to you, my friend. So we'll get out of here on that. Enjoy the golf this week in Torrey. How are your kids feeling? Kids feeling a little bit better now? I know they're battling with strep the past week.
Yeah, we're good. Just typical parent stuff. Wintertime in Michigan. I mean, it's like it's going down to like 20 below tomorrow with the wind chill. So it's I envy that for sure about California. So
I don't play golf. I don't know if you play golf, Ron, but the golf courses in Michigan are like some of the highest on my bucket list. For a golf architecture, not like myself, I've been dying to make a Michigan trip for many, many years. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it off this summer in year one of the company. But I'm dying to get out there. I'm sure the point being is I'm sure it's difficult right now and cold right now and miserable right now. But from all intents and everything that I've heard, like, is there a better place to live than like northern Michigan in July and August?
yeah, there's a whole bunch of them, and yeah, I played in college actually. But I don't play as much as I'd like to now, but yeah,
Gets harder, huh?
It does. But even the courses in this area, like people don't think the Detroit area, but you get into
they've
like
hidden gems. They have some good ones.
Oh yeah, for sure. But no, you need to make it up here, and we'll hit some up together.
We'll do it. We'll do it, man. Have you ever been to Forest Dunes or any of the ones out there in northern Michigan?
I have not been up there yet. No.
Yeah. Yeah. The Loop, all those, obviously Crystal Downs, but even like the Traverse City area I've heard is excellent. So
tons of them. Tons of Jack Nicklaus courses up there.
But then also tons of like, I mean, Doak lives there, I mean, Mike DeVries, like Michigan has some of the best soil on earth for building golf courses. So yeah, we'll have to make that happen. Looking forward to it, my friend. And best of luck with your bets this week. We'll see you next time, dude.
Appreciate it. Thank you.